Hello everyone, welcome to Ashok IT. In this video, we will be discussing top 20 FAQs on microservices. Let's start. So question number 1 is, what do you mean by microservice? Microservice, also known as microservices architecture, is basically a SDLC approach in which large applications are built as a collection of the small functional modules. It is one of the most widely adopted architectural concept within the software development. In addition, it is for helping the easy maintenance. This architecture makes development faster, and it is also a very big asset for the latest method of the software development such as DevOps and Agile. It also helps to deliver the large complex applications, and these are modeled as a collection of the services. Now we'll go to the next question. So our next question is, what are the main features of the microservice? So there are several features of the microservices that are listed here. So number one is decoupling. Decoupling is like within a system, services are largely decoupled. The application as a whole can therefore be easily constructed, altered, and scalable. Second one is componentization. So componentization is like microservices are viewed as independent component that can easily be exchanged or upgraded. The third one is business capabilities. It is like microservices are relatively simple and only focus on one service. Next is autonomy. We call it as a autonomy or the team autonomy. Each developer works independently on each other, allowing for the faster project timeline. We have continuous delivery. So continuous delivery is nothing but it enables the frequent software releases through the systematic automation of the software development, testing, and approval. We have responsibility. Responsibility is like the microservices focus on the not only focus on the projects, rather they see application as a product, means they are the responsible for everything. Now we have the decentralized governance. So decentralized governance, it's for the choosing the right tool according to the job, and that is the goal. And developer can choose the best tool to solve their problems. We have agility. Agility is like the microservices facilitate agile development. It is a process to create the new features quickly and discard them again at any time. Let's move to the next question now. What are the main components of microservices? So some of the main components of microservices includes containers, IAC, cloud infrastructure, API gateway, enterprise service bus, and service delivery. Let's move to the next question. Explain the working of microservice architecture. This is the very common question asked in interviews. So the working of the microservice architecture includes, it starts with a client. You can see here client. So in client, different users send the request from various devices. Then it goes to the identity provider. Here identity provider, it validates a user or a client identity and issue security tokens. Then it moves to here, that is API gateway. What API gateway does? It handles the request, whatever request comes from the client. Then you can see this static content below this API gateway. So here in static content, it contains all the system content. Then we have the management here. In management, what happens? Services are balanced on nodes and the failures are identified. We have service discovery, a guide to the discovering the roots of the communication between the microservice. That is service discovery, that just next to the management. After that, we have content delivery network. That is the, you can see the entire network. That is a content delivery network. It includes the distributed network of the proxy servers and their data centers. We have remote service. Extreme right, you can see the remote service provides the access to the data or the information that resides on the network computers and devices. Now let's move to the next question. So next question is, what is the difference between the monolithic, SOA and microservice architecture? You can see with the diagram, the monolithic is like a single unit. As is the name said, it's a single unit, or in other words, we can call it as a big container. So it is like a big container where all the software components of an application are bundled together tightly. It is usually built as one of the large system and is a one code base, like it have the one code base. The second one is the SOA. That is, you can see in diagram, coarse grained. It's a coarse grained means small, you can say a part in a whole. It is a group of the service that are interacting or communicating with each other. Depending on the nature of the communication, it can be simple data exchange, or it could involve the several services coordinating some activity. Now the next is the microservice. The microservice is like fine grained. It's like a very small groups of services. It involves the structuring and application in the form of the cluster of the small autonomous services that are modeled around a business domain. The functional modules can be deployed independently, are scalable, and aimed at achieving specific business goal and communicate with each other over standard protocols. So now let's move to the next question. So next question is, explain Spring Cloud and Spring Boot. You can call it as a difference between these two. Like what is Spring Cloud and what is Spring Boot? Let's move to it one by one. So first is Spring Cloud. Spring Cloud in microservices is a system that integrates with external systems. This is a short-lived framework designed to build applications quickly. It contributes significantly to microservice architecture due to its association with finite amount of data processing. And our next is Spring Boot, which is very common these days. So Spring Boot is an open source Java based framework that provides its developer with a platform on which they can create standalone production grade Spring applications. Now let's move to the next question. What is the role of the actuator in Spring Boot? So in Spring Boot, a Spring Boot Actuator is the project that provides RESTful web services to access the current state of the application that is running in production. In addition, you can monitor and manage the application uses in the production environment without having to code or configure any applications. Let's move to the next question now. Explain how you can override the default properties of Spring Boot properties. So by specifying properties in an application.properties file, it is possible to override the default properties in a Spring Boot project. We also have this example here, like in a Spring VC application, if you need to specify a suffix and prefix, then you can do this by adding the properties that are listed below. You can see this. So we can do it like this in the application.properties file. Our next question is, what do you mean by cohesion and coupling? Or this question can be asked in a different way, like what is the exact difference between the cohesion and the coupling? So we'll start with the cohesion. Cohesion is defined as a relationship between two or more parts or the elements of a module that serves the same purpose. Generally, a module with high cohesion can perform a specific function efficiently without needing communication with any other module. High cohesion enhances the functionality of the module. You can see with the diagram as well. Now we'll move to the coupling. So what is coupling? It is defined as a relationship between the software modules A and B. You can see the software modules A and B in the diagram, module A and a module B, and how can one module depends or interact with another. Coupling falls into three major categories. Modules can have the high coupled, like highly dependent, loosely coupled, and uncoupled from each other. The best kind of coupling is loose coupling, in which is achieved through interfaces. Let's move to the next question now. What are the fundamental characteristics of microservice design? So there are different fundamental characteristics of the microservice design. The first one is based on the business capabilities. Services are divided and organized around business capabilities. The second is product, not projects. As I previously said also, microservice is entirely based on products, not project. Means a product should be belong to the team that handles it. We have essential messaging frameworks that rely on the functional messaging framework, eliminates the you can say centralized services buses by embracing the concept of decentralization. We have decentralization governments. The development team are accountable for all the aspects of the software they produce. We have decentralization data management. The microservices allows each service to manage its data separately. We have automated infrastructure, so these systems are complete and can be deployed independently as well. Means each system is independently deployed. The next is design for failure. Increase the tolerance of failure of service by focusing on continuous monitoring of the applications. Let's move to the next question now. Explain the pact in microservices. What is pact? PACT. So PACT is defined as the open source tool that allows the service provider and the consumer to test the interaction so in isolation against the contract that has been made to increase the reliability of the microservice integration. It also offers supports for the numerous languages such as Ruby, Java, Scala, .NET, JavaScript, Swift, and Objective-C. Now the next question is, let's move to the next question. So the next question is, explain how independent microservices communicate with each other. So independent microservice communicate with each other, like communication between the microservices can happen through these two things, that is HTTP or REST with JSON, or the binary protocol for request response. We use WebSockets for streaming, and also a broker or server program that is used in the advanced routing algorithm. RabbitMQ, NATS, Kafka, etc. can also be used as a message brokers. Each is built to handle a particular message semantic. You can also use the backend as a service like Space Cloud to automate their entire backend. Let's move to the next question. What do you mean by domain driven design? That is DDD. Domain driven design is basically an architectural style that is based on the object oriented analysis design approaches, and the principle in this is like in this approach the business domain is modeled carefully in software and without regarding it to how that system actually works. By in connecting relatable components of the software development into the continuously evolving systems, it facilitates the development of the complex system. So there are basic three fundamental underlying that are shown below. So these are the three fundamentals you can see here. That is that is concentrate on the code domain and domain logic. That is the first thing. Second is analyze domain models to fix the complex designs. What all complex design is? First, we have to analyze the domain models for that. The third one is to engage in regular collaborations with the domain experts to improve the application models and address emerging domain issues. Here, what we have. So this is what the driving domain driver design is. So next, we'll go to next question now. Next question is explain OAuth. This is very important question which are very like in frequently asked in interviews. So generally if we speak, OAuth is open authorization protocol. It's very general like a normal statement that enables the user to authenticate themselves with the third party service providers. With this protocol, you can access client application on HTTP for third party providers such as GitHub, Facebook, etc. Using this, you can also share the resources on one side with another side without requiring their credentials. Let's move to the next question. Explain the importance of the reports and the dashboards in microservices. Monitoring a system usually involves the use of the reports and dashboards. Using reports and dashboards for microservices can help you in determining which microservices support which microservice support which resource, which microservice are impacted whenever changes are made or occur to component. It makes the documentation easy to access whenever needed. It reviews the deployed component versions. It also determines the level of maturity and compliance for the components. Let's move to the next question. What are reactive extensions in microservices? Reactive extension, that is also known as RX, is basically a design approach that calls multiple services and then generates a single response by combining the results. The calls can either be blocking or non-blocking, synchronous or asynchronous. A popular tool in distribution system RX work exactly opposite to legacy flows. Let's move to the next question. Explain the type of test mostly used in microservices. So now we will discuss the tests which are basically used in microservice. So as there are multiple microservices working together, you can see in microservices there are the multiple layers or the multiple systems which works together. So in microservice testing becomes quite complex when working with microservices. Consequently, tested are categorized according to their level. The first one is system test, second is like integration test, and third one is the unit test. Or we can categorize it according to the bottom level test, middle level test, and top level test. Unit test are the bottom level test, this integration test is the mid level test, and system test are the top level test. Okay, so now we'll start with the bottom level test, that is the unit test. The bottom level tests are those tests that deals with the technology such as a unit test and the performance test. This is a completely automated automation process. So next is the middle, you can say this one middle level test, that is integration test. In this we have the exploratory test such as stress test and usability test. Then the main is the top level test, that is system test. In the system test, if we talk about the system test, so in we can call it as a top level test or the top level testing. It has the limited number of acceptance tests. The acceptance test helps stakeholders understand and verify the software features. Let's move to the next question. Explain container in microservices. So containers are useful technologies for allocating and sharing resources. It is considered the most effective and easiest method for managing microservice based application to develop and deploy them individually. Using Docker, you may also encapsulate a microservice along with its dependencies in the container. You can see here in the image which can be used in a role on demand instances of the microservices without any additional work. Let's move to the next question. What is the main role of Docker in microservice? So Dockers are generally provide a container environment in which any application can be hosted. This is accomplished by tightly packaging both the application and the dependencies required to support it. These package, or we call it as a package, that products are referred to as a container, and since Docker is used to doing that, they are called as Docker containers. Docker residence allows you to containerize your microservices and manage these microservices more easily. Let's move to the next and the last question of this session. What do you mean by Mycon pyramid? So Mycon test pyramid explains the different types of the automated test need for the software development. So the test pyramid is basically used to maximize the automation at all the levels of testing. It includes unit testing, service testing, UI testing, etc. The pyramid also states that unit testing are faster and more isolated, while UI tests, which are at the top, are the most time consuming and are centered around integration. So these are the three tests, and this pyramid that we already covered before is the Mycon test pyramid. So in conclusion, I'll say like microservice architecture is the method of developing the large applications, and these all the list of the questions are like we have constructed it very carefully, and hope this interview questions is helpful for you. Okay, thank you for watching this video. So like this video, comment, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you.